What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Sloppy Saturdays. And today I am joined with my friend Kenneth Grunfelder.
Dami, it's always a pleasure.
And today we were actually doing something different. If you guys have been following us, we did the same type of thing last year. I didn't do it with Ken. Luckily, I have him as a guest. But we always, middle of the year, somewhat middle of the year, go over the NFL rookies, talk about them, how to transition it from college to the NFL. This year, I feel like there's a lot of different storylines than previous years with some of these guys that we're going to go over. And Ken, he does a lot of NFL content. If you guys want to check him out, go over to Infinite Sports. He'll plug his stuff everywhere. I'll probably put it in the comment section below, all the links and everything. And you should see some clips from this podcast over on his page as well. Anyway, let's get into everything we want to go over. We're going to start off hot with a topic that I've wanted to discuss on here for multiple weeks. I kept on pushing it back because I didn't know how I was going to go over these NFL rookies, but this is a hot topic right now. I want to talk about Travis Hunter to start it off and how the Jaguars are using him. Now, the biggest thing with Travis Hunter for me, for you, for everybody pre-draft of Travis Hunter, it was like this notion that you were getting essentially 2 first-round picks, 2 players. You were getting double the value. Obviously, Travis Hunter played both ways in college all the time. This is a different game in the NFL. Now, I know it's really hard to play both ways in college because the game is a lot faster, a lot sped up. There's a lot more hurry up, especially if you're on the defensive end. But again, this isn't college, this is the NFL. And obviously, the biggest question on the team that was going to draft Travis Hunter was how they were going to use him. And me and Ken talked about this when he was drafted or pre draft, whatever it was. There should be something on this podcast talking about him, saying whatever team drafts him is going to have a lot of questions to answer post game and throughout the week. He's going to be a topic of conversation because if this team is losing, there's going to be questions on when you used him, how you used him. Now, the notion, you correct me if I'm wrong, but to the vast majority, and I believe we both agreed on this, was everybody thought when Travis Hunter was going through the pre-draft process, there was essentially only one way to use him. We all thought that he was going to play defense almost the whole entire time, and then you're going to sprinkle him in third down and red zone situations possibly. Because we all know it is very difficult to sprinkle somebody in at corner. It's more of a rhythm position, a position you got to kind of play almost every down, but you could put somebody in packages on offense. That's the way we've seen people who are similar to him play the position. Like we saw Deion Sanders, again, a little later in his career, but play defense the whole way, get sprinkled in the Cowboys on offense. Like that's the only way realistically that made sense to us. Now, when he got drafted, we saw they wanted to use him on offense more. And I feel like that turned a lot of heads because we all had this original plan on how they were going to use Travis Hunter. Now it's different. He comes in now at this point in the season where we have seen him pretty much all over the place, but we have not seen him all the way on either side. And I personally feel like now for a guy that we thought you were going to get double the value for, I feel like you get less value than a regular player. He's not making nearly as much of an impact as a regular player because he's playing like half and half on both sides of the ball. He's not making as much of an impact. For me personally, it doesn't seem like he has the connection with Trevor Lawrence that has been built up yet. And on defense, he's being sprinkled in, and it hasn't really shown as much of an impact as well. I mean, we saw flashes of excellence on both sides throughout the whole season. The guy's an amazing athlete. The talent is not what's in question. But again, like we saw him in the Seahawks game play really well on JSN. You could argue right now is playing like the best receiver in football. We saw him on offense in the Rams game, have a touchdown there, over 100 yards. So there's no doubt the talent is there. But like I said, the way they are using Travis Hunter to me, when it turned out, when everybody wanted to draft him and they wanted to move up for him because you're getting 2 players at once, I feel like now you're getting like half a player essentially due to the impact. I don't even mind at this point where they want to use him necessarily. I just feel like they got to go all in on one side for him to learn in the beginning of his career, one side, and then maybe put some more weight on him later in his career. But again, we've seen better prospects, not necessarily like guys that play both sides, but we've seen prospects that we were super high on. Sorry, my mic just fell. We've seen prospects that we were super high on different positions, and they play 2 years every down, every position, and still don't get it. So for this guy getting half the reps on both sides, for me, it just seems like it isn't working. I want to get your thoughts on it.
Yeah, so I definitely am with you. I think they should try to lean more into one side rather than trying to, balance both him being a corner and a receiver. I think also, like, I had questions about the defense going into the year, and I think the defense actually has been, a strength for the team, actually. They take the ball away. And when you look at the offensive side of the ball, Brian Thomas hasn't really gotten off to a great start. And like you mentioned, Travis Hunter had probably his best game as a receiver the previous week against the Rams, even though it was in a blowout. But still put together a good game. Had his first NFL touchdown. So yeah, like you said, the talent is there 100%, and he's played in now. I guess this was his seventh or eighth game of his career. Obviously, like he's got a long career, ahead of him with his skill set. So yeah, I just feel like with the defense being a strength already, and I think you kind of need more on the offensive side of the ball because I think Trevor Lawrence for me this year has kind of been a mixed bag. He's had some really good moments, like the Monday night game against the Chiefs is probably like the biggest win of his career, honestly, in that spot. But I also think that you could take a look at some of the other games. I mean, and the Rams game was not pretty, but you could also say that was more than just on him. I mean, I think that was just you ran into a better team. That was a team loss. You can't just pinpoint it on one guy. So you're looking for that consistency out of him, and I think having Travis Hunter on that side of the ball consistently, I think is only going to help Trevor Lawrence. So that's kind of where I'm at with him. Now that doesn't mean that, and I know you said this too, that a cornerback is kind of a position you got to be in a rhythm, constantly. So if you're going the other way and you're having him play offense more, and then you're sprinkling him in on defense, well, sometimes that can maybe that burns you. So so maybe if they need him to go out there on defense, and if they're running thin on corner or something, if they're dealing with injuries and things like that, then maybe you sprinkle him back on defense. But I think right now how the Jaguars are kind of set up and the way the defense has been playing, I think you want to lean more towards Travis Hunter being a weapon on offense and continuing to help Trevor Lawrence along here in the season. And the Jaguars, they're right in the middle of, a playoff race. I mean, right now the Colts are kind of running away with the division a bit. They hold the best record in the NFL. But that doesn't mean, the Jags, I mean, there's an outside chance the Jags could catch up to them. We haven't seen them play each other this year. But, I mean, the wild card is definitely in the conversation. So, that's kind of where I'm at with the whole Travis Hunter thing. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I pretty much agree with everything you said to start this off.
I think the other thing too that like you alluded to while you were talking is I feel like this team has so much back end potential because if you were to tell me now, I'm not sure every single game this team played, but when you look at Trevor Lawrence being a mixed bag, looking really good some weeks, looking worse other weeks. When you look at Brian Thomas Jr., who's been an absolute disaster based on what we saw last season coming into this year, I believe he leads the league in drops with 9. And then them not really knowing how to use Travis Hunter, and you're still sitting at 4-3. I think you got to be pretty happy with that. And I'm like sort of with you at this point. Like I really don't care necessarily what side of the ball they use him on. I just want to see more consistency. I thought, like, again, they thought they were kind of like outsmarting themselves, saying, hey, we're facing the Bengals and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins this day. We need them on defense. And then we want to use them on offense this day. Like, again, I think that's kind of outsmarting himself. And for such like a young player like him, I don't think you could change the game plan for him every week when he's really adjusting to life in the NFL right now. Again, if this is 5-6 years down the line where he has learned both sides of the ball completely in the NFL and you want to give him different game plans every week, that's one thing. And I get it, this day and age, we've seen, again, across all sports, athletes doing certain things that we have never seen before. But I feel like they're putting a lot on the plate of a rookie in Travis Hunter. And again, we thought they were going to predominantly use him on one side. I feel like we've been kind of shocked. And I didn't really want to hammer the Jaguars too much. But again, they went a complete different route with Travis Hunter. I was super excited to talk about it and get your thoughts on it, because it's definitely been a hot topic. And I don't want to say like I knew this was going to happen, but this was going to be the primary focus on the Jaguars this year, how Travis Hunter is used. And when they're not playing well, the questions are obviously going to arise. Any other thoughts capping off Travis Hunter?
No, I mean, also, I guess another thing I'd throw in is I've said this on my show too. I give a lot of credit to Liam Cohen. I didn't really know what to expect. He did very well in Tampa, and I think he also was with Sean McVay and his coaching staff at one point. He was with the Rams. So he's kind of taken, what he did in Tampa, the success he had with Baker Mayfield, and he's kind of brought a little bit of that over to Jacksonville as well. And like I said, like the defense has been good. And also, I think, Travis Etienne, although he's kind of slowed down a little bit, but he's had a much better start to his season after a down year last year. And he was also hurt too. So, the Jags, they're definitely an improved team from last year.
Yeah, 100%. And again, I'm excited to see how this pans out for the rest of the season. Hopefully, we do get a chance to talk about it when the season's over, and hopefully they use Travis Hunter in a better light and this Jaguar team takes off. Now we're going to get into the next pretty much hot topic. We were talking about the New York Giants, Jackson Dart, Cam Skattebo, even a little Abdul Carter in there, even though we're really just talking about offensive rookies today. We'll throw him in there as well. Now, the first thing I want to say about Jackson Dart, Cam Skattebo, especially after the loss to the Denver Broncos, I feel like, again, whoever is listening to this, I feel like you don't necessarily know like what living in New York and watching New York football from week to week is like. Like we all know, everybody knows across the country, Giants, Jets, they have been a disaster. But like watching week from week of it, it's like it like really opens your eyes watching 4 quarters every week. And again, that's what happened with the Denver Broncos. Again, they had an historic comeback, and again, another New York team falls. But Jackson Dart, Cam Skattebo, everybody has said it. You could hear it from podcast to podcast, wherever you listen to. They have brought life to the New York Giants. Now, us, luckily, did see Jackson Dart's debut. He did really well in that debut. And again, I feel like they really had no choice in New York Giants. I mean, I was a proponent. We argued about Jackson Dart starting day one. But if we're being honest here, Jackson Dart had to come in very quickly. Russell Wilson really did not look good in basically any of his starts. I guess the Giants start, he played really well. But then again, threw one of the worst balls I've ever seen to cost them the game. There was really no room for Jackson Dart to really learn, I guess, for half the season or whatever. They needed him to come in. He has looked really good now. I feel like he's one of those guys where the statistics aren't showing the whole story. I guess his best statistical game was last week, even though it did come in a loss. But again, you're seeing him right around 150, 200 yards every game. So the statistics don't look good. But when you look at the Giants, yes, they are 2-4. But again, Jackson Dart is really 2-2. And then you look at the 4 games he had played. He played, in my estimation, 3 playoff teams. Again, with 3 pretty tough defenses. Then obviously he plays the Saints as well. That was kind of just a disaster. They started off hot. Cam Skattebo put the ball on the ground. He made some mistakes. But I just think, again, when you look at New York football, and we've seen the amount of quarterbacks come from New York and go to other teams and have success, whether it's Sam Darnold, Daniel Jones, and obviously Baker Mayfield with a similar story as them. I've always said it like, again, do I think Daniel Jones and Sam Darnold were the problem necessarily in their situations? No, but these people are drafted in the first round. Again, Jackson Dart wasn't a top 10 pick, but these people are drafted in the first round to make a change to the organization. You want to change the organization, bring new life. I get it. The guys that we have had in New York in the past weren't necessarily the problem, and they've had success in better situations. But you are drafted to make a change for the organization, to uplift the organization. And I have really seen Jackson Dart do that. And even necessarily not even on the offense. I feel like this defense has more life to them playing for a guy like this as well. And Cam Skattebo has looked really good. I'm not 100% sold that Cam Skattebo will be the long-term answer within 5 years of being the Giants starter running back, but he has brought life. Obviously, the way he plays the game, when you see him going 150% on every down, that brings life to the offense as well. Now, the play calling has been a little limited with Jackson Dart, but I think, again, when you look at the defensive line, defensive front they have, the running back that's playing on Cam Skattebo, what they have on offense now as pass catchers with Malik Nabers obviously having that gruesome injury, I don't mind it. And then I feel like Jackson Dart is making the most with his legs and on off script plays as well. After the plays and everything breaks down, I feel like he has looked really good. So again, I feel like Jackson Dart has been pretty solid, and I feel like what the stats don't necessarily show the whole story, because again, how he's able to uplift this team, and again, the group that he has played within these 4 games, like we have said, the Giants' schedule is tough, but you really couldn't have got much of a tougher 4 games to start. And again, he's 2-2, even though the Giants are 2-4. What do you have to make of this situation? Obviously, being a Giants fan.
So first, I'd like to say the Giants are 2-5.
Oh, 2-5.
But I appreciate you shaving off a loss. You know, yeah. Honestly, like, and I know we went back and forth a lot over how they should handle it at the start of the year, and I still think what I said was valid, because we've seen teams in the past take that approach where you have the veteran start and then you put in the rookie, and that's kind of like what the Giants did way back when with Kurt Warner, and then you transition to Eli. But based off of now, obviously it's easy to say this now based on how things have played out, but I've been so impressed with Jackson Dart and how he's looked that, you know, I it's almost like you would have liked to have seen. I would have loved to have seen him just start week 1 then. Like if he was going to look like this, then, and obviously, yeah, he's turned the ball over. But in the Saints game, I mean, 5 straight times, and it wasn't just him turning the ball over. It was, you know, the receivers, and Skattebo fumbled. And then, you know, you had the interception at the end of the game. Well, not the end of the game, but as the Broncos were making that comeback, you know, that was a tough spot for him, you know, to make that play. You know, I would have loved to have seen Jackson Dart start the year, and it would have been interesting to see where the Giants would be at right now. You know, and you also brought up, you know, the limitations with the playbook. I mean, I think part of that is also with what he has around him. I think the Giants have done a great job at utilizing the tight ends. I mean, now we've seen Daniel Bellinger get involved. Theo Johnson's made plays. You know, it's really unfortunate that, you know, we're not going to see Malik Nabers until next year. You know, it would have been really nice to see that tandem kind of evolve as the season progresses. But, you know, like Wan'Dale Robinson is still making plays. You know, I've just been very impressed with what I've seen out of Jackson Dart. He is the real deal. And, you know, his attitude, like, it doesn't seem like the moment is too big for him. You know, like, you're playing in a hostile environment against the Broncos, and that is not an easy place to play. And now I have to say I was out for most of this game. I did catch, of course, the comeback in the fourth quarter. I did come home for that. So that was the part of the game I actually did watch. So that was great. But, you know, like he continues to make plays. He's a very good runner. You know, he doesn't run into sacks. You know, I just think he's made for this. And the Giants have really needed this kind of player. And you add that you add Cam Skattebo now to the fold too. Like, yeah, the Giants have really been missing this kind of attitude for a long time. They've really needed this. And it really does go to show you that, you know, if you have an offense that you trust, you know, and believe in, that you know is going to put up points, the whole team is impacted by it. Like it's definitely made the defense play better. Although I think the defensive coordinator should have been let go after this past game against the Broncos, because that's now two games this year that I think he's a main culprit in why they lost. Based off of how they set things up, towards the end of the games. But yeah, like I go back to when the 49ers first traded for Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, they didn't make the playoffs by any means, but they were going to have like one of the worst records in the NFL. And then Garoppolo ended up taking over as the starter for like the final 5 or 6 games, and they finished like 6-10. And they had like one win. They had 1 or 2 wins at one point, and one of them, of course, was against the Giants. That was Ben McAdoo's last one of Ben McAdoo's last games that he coached as for the Giants. So like I kind of related to that. Like you put in the young guy, and it just gives the team life. But having said that, though, the Giants just continue to lose games in ways that I just have never seen before. And a part of me is like a little worried that Dart and Scadaboo are going to get engulfed by that. But there is a side of me that actually does have more confidence that they're going to be they are part of the solution, but they are going to turn this thing around, and this team is going to be a problem. And it's just unfortunate that they lost this game on Sunday, because you look at the division, like you if you win a couple more games, like you're in it. And they beat up on the Eagles. They should have beaten the Cowboys. And again, like if Dart was playing like this and he started week 1, who's to say they could have beat Washington? Washington really didn't do that much to beat the Giants, because the Giants couldn't do anything. They would get in the red zone, and Russ would be throwing the ball over the receiver's head, or they'd try to run a play where they got to tackle, running a route. Like they couldn't score. So, that's also something you got to think about. But I'm impressed by both of them. Scadaboo, like I said, I'm in agreement with you that I don't think he's going to be like, he's not going to be, like an Adrian Peterson. Like he's going to have like this super long career where he's going to be the number 1 back. Like they still have Tyrone Tracy there, who also had a rushing touchdown on Sunday. So you're going to kind of have like, I've been saying it's going to be like an Ahmad Bradshaw, Brandon Jacobs type deal, which is fine because the Giants won 2 Super Bowls with those 2 guys. So, and Bradshaw was at the game that we went to, Dart's debut. So that's kind of how I see that playing out. But, and I'll say this about Scadaboo, like I said, like he's not like a Saquon Barkley, he's not a Christian McCaffrey, but he's a tough runner. He's a very good blocker, too, and he fights for every yard, and that's the kind of thing the Giants need. So they're heading in the right direction, even though they're still losing games, like I said, in just unbelievable ways that you couldn't even fathom. But they just continue to do it. So hopefully they're rounding the corner, and they're getting away from this bad era of football. But it's going to be interesting what they do with Brian Daboll, what they do with Joe Schoen after the season, depending on if how many more games they win, which I definitely think they are going to win some games. But is it going to be enough for these guys to keep their jobs? More so Brian Daboll, because I think Joe Schoen has done a very good job with these past 2 drafts. Although you could also say, well, look at how he's handled the kicking situation, because for some reason I don't know why the Giants haven't figured that out. But I think it's more so on Daboll, and that's why there's all those clips of them on the sidelines, him and Dart. Like this is his key to saving his job. So.
Yeah, I think especially with Schoen, when you look at the draft picks he has had, especially this year when you could say his job was on the line, and you have Jackson Dart, who most people think are going to be your franchise QB. You have Abdul Carter that has looked great, who we barely even talked about, and then you also have Cam Scadaboo, who's looked good. Like this draft class has looked really good. I think it would be very, very hard for them to fire him after that. If everything stays like how it is now, or maybe even increases where like everybody does still remain to look good, I think it would be very hard to fire him. And I think the Giants have, we said in the beginning of the year with the defensive line, and then like I believe in Jackson Dart and Malik Neighbors, like what they have right now at their core, I feel like, again, you're going to see, just like you've seen in the last 4 games where they have really stuck and had impressive wins, or again, stuck with an opponent like Denver and ended up losing. But you're seeing the makings, I feel like, of a team at its core that's going to look impressive at times this year. And then next year with, again, maybe an added offensive line piece and another weapon, and you bring Malik Neighbors back. Hopefully he's fully healthy. You're going to see a team that has the core to be a really good football team. Like you're seeing, I feel like the buildup of it right now. For Brian Dable, again, I'm not a huge fan of how he coached the end of the Denver Broncos game. Again, Jackson Dart did have a crucial interception in that game. But at the same time, I feel like I hate when coaches necessarily like do what got you to the moment. Like I feel like towards the end of the game, they were trying to just run clock, and that didn't really end up working out, obviously. And it was just like not even running clock. Like they didn't really use Jackson Dart's legs at the end of the game. It was just Scatterboo up the middle.
Yeah, it was a lot of short runs.
Like eventually, I feel like again, I know you want to run the clock out, but you were just giving Denver the ball back, especially a good team like Denver with a good quarterback like Bo Nix and a great coach on the other side. It's like when you have that play calling so predictable, and I get it. Like again, it was like an historic comeback. They scored whatever, how many points, 30 plus points in the fourth quarter. But again, I'm a little questionable on how that play calling was open up. Like I think you got to still remain to do what got you to that point. They were just trying to run the game out. It obviously didn't work. We could like debate the end of that game to the end of time. But Jackson Dart, Cam Scatterboo, even Abdul Carter, all have looked great. And I really think Joe Schoen definitely going to keep his job. And I think it's even looking good for Brian Dable as well because, like, again, you could argue like a lot of the draft classes weren't necessarily his guys. Now these are all like his guys, and they have all looked impressive again. You could see either way because we know at the end of the day this year the Giants aren't going to be a winning team most likely. So again, there's always the outcome of both being fired, but I think their jobs look a lot better than they did going into the season.
Yeah, no, that I would agree with.
So that wraps up the New York Giants again. Cam Scatterboo, Jackson Dart, I feel like their impact again goes a little bit more than stats, especially the way Cam Scatterboo plays. The uplift Jackson Dart to give them. The Giants are in a really good situation for the future. Now we're going to get into the Cleveland Browns, another hot topic. We're going to talk about the QB situation. But first, before we do that, I want to talk about Quinshon Judkins. I feel like this Quinshon Judkins thing, especially when it comes to whatever fantasy, real life, I feel like a lot of people got fooled by a situation. The guy sits out 1 week. The guy was somebody that we thought was a great running back coming out of college, but with the pending case that he had, a lot of people are off on him. And he has been pretty much the heartbeat of this Browns offense. Everything is running through him. I think he has looked absolutely phenomenal. I think he's looked better in between the tackles than I thought. They haven't really used him as much in the receiving game, and I think he's a great receiving back as well. I think this is a guy that could play all 4 downs in the NFL one day. I mean, we've seen it in spurts with the Browns right now, but a guy that could play all 4 downs, what he's able to do running in between the tackles, what he's able to do in the receiving game. Like this is a do-it-all back, and I feel like the Browns are really running the offense through him. And it's largely because of their quarterback situation, even from Joe Flacco in the first couple of weeks to the rookies they have now, and the defense they have. Like this is AFC North football. This is running the football, playing defense in these temperatures. Again, it's going to get even worse later in the year when it comes to that. But again, I am very impressed with Quinshon Judkins. Even for me in fantasy, I regret that I didn't select him. I think he has been phenomenal. He looked good in his college career. We knew this was a guy that was going to pan out, but again, with the pending case and everything, everybody was concerned of him. Now, my only thing with Quinshon Judkins, like he has looked great, and he's 7th in carries after missing a game as well, that beginning game. My only concern is, again, and we're going to talk about with Ash Genti as well, is having these rookie star running backs and giving them a lot of work early in their career when that team isn't necessarily competing now. And then if the Browns don't get it right in the next 2 or 3 years, you basically use this guy's shelf life as a running back where he wasn't really impacting winning necessarily because the team just wasn't there yet. But I absolutely love Quinshon Judkins, and I think he's thriving necessarily from the situation. Not only the Browns being good in the trenches, but he's thriving again. Them not having their quarterback and the whole offense basically running through him. What do you think of Quinshon Judkins so far?
Yeah, no, he's been very impressive. He's been very impressive. Yeah, no, his whole situation, I think, scared people off a little bit. And Dylan Sampson was getting work early on, but now he's kind of taken over. Um, I know you brought up, comparing him and Genti. I mean, we both agree, obviously, because I know we've talked about this. The Browns are like, they have a good team. Like, they have a good roster. Like, they just need to figure out this quarterback situation. And I feel like if they once they get that figured out, and they could probably add another pass catcher, but they got some young players on the offensive side of the ball. Their defense is really good. Like, I think they're going to be in a position where they can compete. Whereas the Raiders, I think there's going to be a lot of work that needs to be done before they can really start to compete. And on top of that, the division is, impossible for them right now. Hence, we saw, them losing 31-0 to the Chiefs on Sunday. Um, so, yeah, but I've been really impressed by him. Yeah, I mean, he hasn't really been used as a receiver at times, but I mean, the explosiveness from him, he's really been a game breaker since taking over and being that number one back. So that's something that Browns fans got to be excited about. I mean, I guess, kind of gives them reminders, I guess, of when Nick Chubb first broke onto the scene. So, yeah, no, I really like how he's been playing, and it's just something that the Browns can continue to build a building block for the Browns as they try to get themselves back to being a playoff team, which is it's not going to be this year, but like I said, the quarterback position, which we're going to talk about in a minute, I think is something that it's kind of it separates them from being a team that's not competing to a team that's going to be competing uh, in the near future.
Yeah, and I think again he is getting a lot of work, obviously, with the play calling and the quarterbacks and what they have in offense and the style they want to play all being in place. But again, also it is pretty difficult when the play calling is predictable. There's no vertical passing threat, and you got to play your defense like very in between the lines, and basically what's coming, and to not have that threat and still be running the football good. I think it's pretty impressive. Now we're going to talk about the quarterbacks on Cleveland and what their plan is moving forward. Now we have debated again Dylan Gabriel, Shador Sanders. I have made multiple episodes on this podcast about it. It is one of the hottest topics still in football, even though Shador Sanders hasn't even stepped onto the field yet. Everybody still loves to talk about him. Again, I like doing it in intervals. I don't want to just continue to talk about Shador Sanders when nothing is really going on with him. But it has been a while since we've done it. Talking about Dylan Gabriel first, 546 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. He has a 28.8 QBR, which again is really rough. What I'm seeing from Dylan Gabriel right now, and Kevin Stefanski continues to praise this and give it a little too much love. But again, they're working a QB in the system. We talked about the Giants, how they have limited play calling. And again, we talked about the Browns' style of play, how their defense, you could argue, is number one in the league. Their running game is pretty good as well. Dylan Gabriel is out there right now just trying not to turn the ball over and not to make a mistake. And I feel like it's necessarily like hurting him in the long run because again, he's not making the mistake. He's moving on from week to week. They do get a win last week, but you're gonna have to take chances. If you want to keep your job in the NFL, you're gonna have to keep taking chances. And for Dylan Gabriel, that's on like such a timeline right now, and time like isn't his friend necessarily because of the other rookie quarterback they have in place and where he's got drafted. Like he's got to make the most of this opportunity now. And we have talked about it. Again, they don't have the ideal weapons, the Cleveland Browns, but they don't have bad weapons either. Like Jerry Jeudy and Njoku, Bannon Jr. has looked really good. Like they have good players, like good enough players to have a vertical threat in the passing game to take shots. But again, at the same time, it comes down to the play calling as well with Kevin Stefanski, and the play calling isn't necessarily there. And the shots he has as in the vertical passing game only come a handful of times in the game. He obviously doesn't choose to make that move necessarily. But again, what we were talking about with Jackson Dart making off script type plays and stuff, you don't necessarily see that from Dylan Gabriel. You see again him going through his progressions And then when it doesn't work out, either hit the check down, throwing it away. Everything is pretty safe. And like I said, for a guy like Dillon Gabriel that doesn't have the draft capital, has another rookie in the room, and apparently the rumor is, I don't know if you heard more about it than I did, because I've only heard it from a couple of things on social media. I don't even know if the sources were accurate. Apparently, the Browns are looking to play Shedeur Sanders in the last 4 games. I don't know if you saw that. I don't really remember where it came from, but if Shedeur Sanders is going to play, I necessarily don't even like what the Browns are doing if that is the case, because you have this third round rookie in Dillon Gabriel, and you're putting him on like a time constraint. I feel like you should be evaluating play. And I think it's very hard for, again, Shedeur Sanders fans to really realize that, like, at the end of the day, Shedeur Sanders is a 5th-round pick. This guy got drafted significantly higher than him. So to give both QBs a shot necessarily, and like, again, I don't agree with it. I feel like you should be going off play and how you should be grading the 3rd-round rookie quarterback based on their play without somebody behind him. Because once you take Dillon Gabriel out to put Shedeur Sanders in, whether he's playing bad enough to lose his job or not, it's very hard to insert that guy back in, whether it's later in the year or next year. You take a rookie quarterback out of the starting job, you completely demolish his confidence. We've seen it time and time again in the NFL. When somebody gets taken out at that young of an age as a signal caller, most of the time they are like done. So again, I feel like it should be going on based off his play, not a set timeline. Like, oh, we see Dillon Gabriel, we see Shedeur Sanders, and then we evaluate at the end of the season. This Browns team, again, like we said, they are pretty good everywhere else. They're really good in the trenches. Their defense is really good. Their weapons, again, not the best weapons in the league, but I feel like good enough as well if you have somebody you are confident in as a signal caller. But I don't even know necessarily with those weapons and with those veterans what the Browns' move is going to be. Like, again, we look at them as a team that could possibly compete once they find this quarterback position right in the next couple of years. But they might move off a Judy. They might move off a Njoku, guys that are pushing the timeline in age, that are veterans when they aren't competing right now. So we don't necessarily know if the roster they have now is going to be the roster they end with at the end of the year. But again, Dillon Gabriel, I feel like he has to step it up a little bit. I believe he plays the Patriots this week. Then they go on bye. So again, it is setting up pretty nicely for Shedeur Sanders to come in if that is an option, because we all know how hot the Patriots have been. Then they come off a bye week. Like, that would be the time you put Shedeur Sanders in. But again, I think, like, again, we see Cam Ward, we see a bunch of other people. Like, Dillon Gabriel isn't playing bad, and I feel like his timeline is being affected by Shedeur Sanders. Not necessarily, like, he's not giving a fair timeline based on how he's playing. What do you think of this whole situation?
Yeah, I mean, really the Browns can only blame themselves for this situation because they were the team that, ended up taking Shedeur in the 5th round at the same time as, 2 rounds before that, you take Dillon Gabriel. So now it's just created this mayhem, this, controversy now. So, and that's something that they are going to have to live with. I mean, yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if it ends up being true. It wouldn't surprise me if we end up seeing Shedeur Sanders, like if they feel like they want to give him a chance and see if maybe he can provide more of a spark to the offense. Because you could definitely tell from Dillon Gabriel's brief NFL career so far, well, how his NFL career has been so far, games that he's played in, that there are limitations. And he also doesn't have a big arm. He kind of just gives you that. He's kind of like Tua Tagovailoa, but without, obviously Tua had a great 2023, but Tua is limited as well, and Tua hasn't had a great year either. And that's a whole nother situation. But yeah, Dillon Gabriel is just a game manager right now. And I know, I was watching when they were playing the Steelers, and the Steelers, they won. I think the final score was like 23-6 or something like that. But he also wasn't getting help from his receivers at times, Dillon Gabriel. They were dropping passes as well. So that obviously doesn't help. But, once you're falling behind, I mean, it's going to be hard to try to get back in the game. And obviously, you look at how the Miami game went, and they were in control that entire time because Tua was turning the ball over. The defense was playing well. And then obviously it's easy to just hand it off to Quinshon Judkins and he, does the rest. So right now it doesn't look like Dylan Gabriel is going to be the answer. And I don't know if Shedeur Sanders is going to be the answer. But if they want to give him a chance and see if he gives them more with the offense, then by all means they could do that. But yeah, it's just kind of a weird situation that they kind of put themselves in. And now, the Browns kind of look silly because now you trade away Joe Flacco and look at what he's done with the Bengals, the first 2 games he's been there. And it's like, why couldn't that have happened here? So it's a weird situation, but if they can figure it out and they get it right, the team's going to be pretty good.
Yeah, the thing is too, like obviously, like the Bengals don't have Chase. I mean, the Browns don't have Chase and Higgins, but at the same time, like I think it really comes down to like the play calling. Like I don't even think it's the fact that the Bengals have better weapons. Does that help? Yeah, definitely help Joe Flacco look good. But at the same time, like you have this play calling with Joe Flacco. He hasn't looked as good as he looked in the past 2 years. You have this play calling with Dylan Gabriel. Again, he may win this battle for right now, not turning the ball over, but he's not going to win the war playing like this. Then you throw Shedeur Sanders in this as well with the play calling. It just seems like what they are doing right now to try to keep themselves in games, no matter who the quarterback is, the play calling is going to set them up to fail. And like I said, with Dylan Gabriel, I feel like the chances with the play calling are very limited. But at the same time, you're going to have to take the chances when they are there because like the analogy I just mentioned, like you're gonna win the battle, like, and you're gonna keep pushing yourself week to week, not turning the ball over, but you're not gonna win the war of being a long-term quarterback without taking chances. And again, I just hate how it came down to this, but like you said, the Browns made their bet in the situation, and now they got to lay in it with the 2 quarterbacks they have. There's literally a better chance with a 3rd round pick and a 5th round pick if you take out again Dylan Gabriel's great college career along with Shedeur Sanders. There's a better chance probably that neither of them pan out than one of them pan out. But the way everything has just been with Cleveland, it has been Cleveland X, but it has been a mess. And I think a lot of it with Shedeur Sanders and the owner, like you saw the owner's kids wearing Shedeur Sanders jerseys on the side. Like that's not a great look as well when you have a rookie quarterback playing. But I think more of it has just been selecting Shedeur Sanders for media attention and the revenue and give them a lot of money, which again, Shedeur Sanders right now, his jersey's hotter than anybody. Again, a lot of people want to see him with the media attention. Like he's making the Browns money, but I feel like it's even, again, I'm not the biggest Shedeur Sanders fan, but it's like almost more of a gimmick than like actually giving the kid a chance. And I think it should basically go on week to week in practice what you were seeing from each person. And then again, whoever's in right now going off of that instead of putting these set timelines like we see Dylan Gabriel for 4 weeks, we see Shedeur Sanders for 4 weeks, and then we evaluate at the end of the season. Because again, you keep bringing these guys in and out, both their confidences are going to be shattered because they are rookies. I think it's just like, again, not a great situation. And I think there's a great chance as well, even though I'm not in love with the quarterback class next year, which I continue to go over on this podcast, there's a chance they're picking again next year. It is going to be tough, though. Like, the Browns do have 2 wins right now. And if they manage to win, like, 2 or 3 more games, they're not going to have, like, the 1st, 2nd, 3rd pick probably. So, again, they have the Jaguars pick as well. They have capital, but I don't even know. Like we said, their team is pretty good, but we don't know what the ending result's going to be. We don't know really how these quarterbacks are going to look if any of them are the guy. And then as well, like we keep talking about Stefanski's play calling. Like there's a great chance Stefanski's the next coach fired anyway. So he might not even be calling plays for them at the end of this year to next year as well. Anything else to cap off this quarterback situation with the Browns?
Yeah, no, I was going to say, I mean, Stefanski won Coach of the Year 2 years ago, and 2 years later, it could be he's on his way out, which I wouldn't have a problem with.
Yeah, either would I. And I think, again, whether it's Dylan Gabriel, whether it's Stefanski, they're playing to move on week to week, not to secure their job long term.
And what's going to happen with Deshaun Watson?
I don't even know. Again, with the time off and how Deshaun Watson looked at the time off. I don't even know if there's a realistic
I mean,
option.
because
Like,
I think they're just going to cut ties and they're going to have to eat that money, and that's just another layer to add in the long list of quarterbacks that just have not panned out, and just it's just the Browns are still searching. And I think, listen, at the time it was different. People were different, but the guy that's playing over in Tampa, you had him and you said we're good. So
that's a lot of this too. Like when you look at the Browns, when you look at the Panthers, when you look at all these people, all these teams that like have historically been bad for like the time we were growing up. Again, all these teams had a couple years here and there. Everybody does in 25 years, but these teams have had good quarterbacks and just still continuously don't make it work. It's almost like, to me, it's like no matter almost who you put there, unless it's just an all-time talent, they're going to get it wrong. And there has been, like, again, with all these quarterbacks, there have been moments, Baker Mayfield with them, again, where he leads them to a playoff win. And then you look at Daniel Jones leading the Giants to a playoff win. Like, there has been glimpses of success with these people, but it's just like the organization just continuously fail them. And it's just,
yeah, and you brought up the Panthers. I mean, look at what they did with Cam Newton. They were a team that made the playoffs a lot, and they even went to a Super Bowl.
like, again, even the Panthers, it's even worse because you had Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold in the same room. And then next year you draft a quarterback in Bryce Young, who we're going to talk about in a little bit in this episode when we talk about Ted McMillan. But you draft a quarterback in Bryce Young where the question marks are still out there with him. You use this, you trade up to get him, and now you had two quarterbacks in your room that we looked at as really good quarterbacks in the NFL. So it almost seems like whatever these teams do just puts themselves in the wrong. And like, again, even when they have good quarterbacks that you see later in their career pan out, it's like are they ever going to get it right again?
Yeah.
Like, how many times do we see the Browns and the Jets and all these teams draft at the top continuously, and we see all these guys that we are super high on coming out of college, and they come in and they look like they don't even know how to play. And again, Baker Mayfield wasn't that to me. Like he had moments at least for the Browns where he had looked good, but again, you look at like a guy like Sam Darnold and the Jets or whatever, it was like pretty rough the whole way through. Zach Wilson, whoever, like all these guys, Geno Smith on the Jets or whatever, he looked good for Seattle for like a little bit. Like all these guys like look at least better in other places. And I don't know. The Deshaun Watson thing, not to go on a tangent, it was like very weird from the start of that signing. Like with everything going around him, with him having the year off, and more recently before that, people
they were taking a huge gamble, and it did not pay off at all.
And it wasn't even in the sense of like I feel like most of the gamble during that time was like if he was like going to play with the cases, but like he was able to play for the Browns, whether it was whatever injuries that sideline and bad play, but like that wasn't even the gamble to that point. He just again couldn't overcome that year off, which we see a lot of people not be able to overcome.
And he's had significant injuries. Ruptured his Achilles and then he ruptured it again.
And it's going to be tough, I feel like, for Deshaun Watson. And I think it was very similar to Cam Newton towards the end of his career as well. When you have a guy that's like, I don't even know, like that big of a name as a backup quarterback, it leads teams to not even want to sign them as a backup quarterback. So I feel like it's going to be hard for him once he moves off the Browns, which I do anticipate is going to happen, for another team with everything around Deshaun Watson to invest as in like that popular or that known of a name as a backup quarterback. Again, it's going to be interesting to see. The Browns could be drafting a quarterback again, or maybe Dillon Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders is the answer. But again, I think a lot of it was very gimmicky, and I think it really led them as a football team to have a lot of attention that's going to cause a little rift there, to say the least. Anyway, now we're going to get into the next guy, which I personally don't even understand what is going on with him. I don't even necessarily mind it because the team is winning right now. The team is one of the hottest teams in football. And we have talked about running backs being used in the beginning of their career when either the team's not winning or the team's not in their best spot. But this is a guy that we raved about his pass blocking, one of the best pass blocking tight ends. That's constantly what we said. He's good in between the tackles. He has bursts. Like this was a guy that was great at Ohio State, a guy that we've seen live in college, like a guy that went on a national championship, helped lead them to a national championship. And Travion Henderson is flat out like not being used for the New England Patriots. Again, I'm not sure necessarily why. I'm not sure if they're winning right now and they want to save him for better days. But like he's had, you would think, opportunities. You see Ramondre Stevenson constantly at times putting the ball on the ground. You see Antonio Gibson have a season-ending injury. Somehow this guy magically they drafted in the second round and he can't even get a touch. Like the issue is like it's not even him not playing. The guy like doesn't even get touches. Like last week he got
Yeah, no, I really don't understand it. I really don't get it. Like I would have thought. I'm sorry to cut you off. I would have thought after when they played the Steelers, and both Stevenson and Gibson fumbled multiple times in that game. I thought, all right, this is his chance now to take over, and that hasn't happened. And that was in like what was that? Week 4, and they're still not using him.
And it's kind of one of those things too, where like even in preseason, like the first touch he got like a 100-yard kick return. I get it's preseason,
Yeah.
but like, this guy like is very clearly, at least in my opinion, the most talented back in this room, and he could arguably be the most talented player in this offense. Because even though Drake May is a great quarterback, the weapons there are really nothing to talk about. He's making a lot out of not much, but again, when they're looking to use him, I'm not sure. They haven't even given him the opportunity. I feel like that kills confidence as well. At least if you had him as a second back and you're giving him, 8, 9, 10 touches a game and like having him involved at least. Like he's not even involved. He's on the back burner. I don't even like I said, I don't even get it. Like you draft a running back in the second round and you don't.
I mean, I guess also it could be because I feel like because we definitely. I think we definitely talked about this, not like this exact situation, but I know this was brought up also. I mean, I know they paid Ramondre Stevenson, so I don't know if they just want to. They're saying, look, we paid this guy all this money, like he's our lead back, and they're gonna obviously have to work Henderson in more because now Antonio Gibson, like you mentioned, is out for the year. So I mean, that's another layer you could add to it. I mean, I don't know. I mean, we're not in the room. We don't know what discussions are going on behind closed doors, but I think again you could see, and we saw it. We've seen it with Travis Hunter, him being more involved. I think it's only a matter of time before you see Travion Henderson really start to take over and get more carries, play more of a role in this offense. And the most important thing is right now is the Patriots are winning games. I said they could be a team that
question it.
Yeah, and I said before the year that. I said that they are going to be a team that's going to double their win total. I said maybe they'd be a team that's like still a year away from competing and being a playoff team, but they might be a year. I might have been a year too late because it looks like they are a team that could make the playoffs. And especially when you get into these later months, these cold weather games, and especially in the postseason, you got to have an effective running game. And especially having that young quarterback in Drake May, who's playing really well right now. We're seeing a lot of good quarterbacks playing some good football right now. You want to have a balanced attack. And, Stevenson, he's had a problem with fumbling. It's been a problem pretty much his whole career. And he's had some good games this season if you take away the turnovers. But if you can put together a tandem of him and Travion Henderson at the same time and the way Drake May is playing, I mean, that makes this Patriots team even more dangerous.
Yeah, I just like the biggest thing for me, like I don't mind Ramondre Stevenson being a lead back, but like don't take this guy like out of the game. Like he's not even like in the game. And again, you really can't question what they're doing. I mean, Drake May has looked phenomenal. You could make an argument he's looked like one of the best quarterbacks in the league, if not the best, especially over the last stretch of weeks. He's been absolutely killing it. And the Patriots are going to take that jump, like, again, possibly even a lot quicker than we anticipated. I know we always really like Drake May, but at the same time, I don't know if I was expecting this quick with this roster. Like, he looks like one of the best quarterbacks in the league right now. We'll see how everything continues to pan out. Again, it is fairly early in the season. We'll continue if the Patriots keep playing like this. But I'm with you too. Like you alluded to it, I'm not going to be surprised if because we've seen it with again, I feel like it's like in a day and age, the last like 5, 10 years, how everybody monitors fantasy and stuff. But we've seen running backs really come alive. Again, these rookie running backs get nothing 7, 8 weeks or whatever. And then we may see one game where he gets 10, 15 touches and has 100 yards and a touchdown. Like, I feel like there may be one week where he just pops off and they decide, like, this is the week we're going to really implement him and stuff. But again, there is opportunity. Again, I do think it alludes to, like you said, as well, Ramondre Stevenson getting paid. But it's just odd to me that, like, there has been nothing from him. That wraps up that. Now we're going to talk about possibly our favorite rookie that we talk about every Sunday, sometimes Saturday, sometimes Monday, Tuesday, every day of the week. I feel like we talk about it.
We got a lot of time on our hands.
We are going to talk about Emeka Egbuka. Now, Emeka Egbuka, there's no really sugarcoating it. The guy has been an absolute stud. He has been great. We've seen him, whatever, he was dealing with injuries. He was dealing with injuries recently, but he looks good now. He's healthy going into this next game as well. But I feel like Emeka Egbuka, very similar to somebody else we were talking about, has like the perfect storm of everything just working out for him to have this successful of a rookie season. Again, there has been no doubt of it. I haven't been a huge supporter of the guy in the past. Baker Mayfield is playing like one of the best quarterbacks in football. The offense is very high octane. For a lot of these weeks, he has been the number one option with Mike Evans going in and out of the lineup. Godwin, again, having his situation. And I feel like originally when we were talking about Emeka Egbuka, we were comparing him a lot to Ladd McConkey. When you have these guys, and JSN as well, when you have these guys that prioritize a lot of their routes in the slot and run seamless routes and are able to get separation, we see them translate to the NFL nearly right away. Like, it was the same thing with Ladd McConkey last year. JSN looked really good early in his career as well. And I feel like the slot has opened up for him with Chris Godwin being in and out. And I feel like he has been able to consume a lot of the targets with Mike Evans being in and out. And he looks like an absolute star from day one. And I talked about it this week with Carnell Tate as well. I feel like a lot of people in this Ohio State offense, again, and it's going to be the 3 years that Jeremiah Smith is at Ohio State, they're like looking at him solely because that guy is just a generational talent. But they don't realize necessarily how great some of the other players are in this roster because they, again, aren't getting the opportunity of a wide receiver one in college. They had 3 wide receiver ones last year. They had 2 guys that we just mentioned in Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins. Like, the team is absolutely loaded, but you don't realize how great some of these ancillary pieces are to Jeremiah Smith because they aren't getting just this tremendous amount of work. But Emeka Egbuka, again, I think he went to the right offense for him. There were a little bit of questions in the beginning because you had Mike Evans, you had Chris Godwin, you had Buck Irvin, you had a lot of these weapons. Again, we liked the player in Emeka Egbuka. We weren't necessarily 100% sure on the fit if he was going to be eased in with all these weapons, if they necessarily needed him based on everything they had on offense. But there's no doubt that he's an absolute stud, that they made the right pick. He's been arguably the best player in this whole entire draft right now, going into this point in the NFL season. And again, he looks like the guy that's going to take over for Mike Evans when his time is done for the next 10 years in Tampa Bay. And again, it's the product, again, of him being a great player, but also him being in this offense. And to be quite honest, it also helps as well that everybody in this receiver room has looked great. Even a guy like Sterling Shepard has looked pretty good in moments. Ted Johnson has looked really good in moments. Again, a guy that I thought went way too late as well. So this offense has a lot of pieces. They have a really great quarterback, and the play calling is like, again, it's diverse play calling. It's play calling that takes a lot of chances, and Baker Mayfield likes to throw the football more than anybody. So the opportunity for him has been great, and he has looked phenomenal.
Yeah, he's been awesome. He's been awesome. And yeah, I mean, I remember because we were together to watch the draft, and yeah, we liked the prospect, but at the same time, you were adding to a position group that was a massive strength. And I thought there were other areas they could have addressed. But now how the season is played out, I mean, where would they be without Ibuka? Mike Evans, of course, earlier in the year, the hamstring injury, he comes back, and now broken clavicle and a concussion, and now he's going to be out for pretty much the rest of the regular season. Could be back for the playoffs. It was really tough to see that. And then Chris Godwin, his injury last year, and then he comes back this year, played a couple games, and then he was out again. So, that's only and Ibuka, of course, he dealt with his hamstring injury, but he was able to play on Monday. But he has really produced. On Monday night, it was a tough game for Tampa, but there were some throws that, Baker, overthrew and underthrew. There was one that Ibuka was behind the defense. That would have been a walk-in touchdown if Baker, was able to hit him on that. And you mentioned the separation. I mean, this guy is a really good receiver, and he comes from a college that produces those kinds of players. It's almost like they kind of knew. Well, obviously with Godwin out at the beginning of the year. And also Mike Evans has dealt with injuries pretty much every year. So it was like they knew, like, hey, we gotta take this guy because we got some receivers in this room that are a little bit older that maybe we can't bank on them playing a whole season. And they don't want to have a repeat of what happened last year because they didn't have Ibuka. I mean, they at least had Jalen McMillan, who's another guy that we really haven't talked about because he had the neck injury in the preseason, and hopefully they get him back soon. He's still in a neck brace from what I've been reading, but you get him back, and you got Ibuka, and then Tez Johnson, the guy that was taken in, right? He was taken in the 7th round. Yeah. So I mean, they got potentially a trio of 3 young receivers for the future. So you got to like what Tampa did there. So I think they're definitely better equipped. As we move along in the season here, with Godwin being hurt, now Mike Evans being hurt, because now you got these young guys that you could rely upon that you didn't necessarily have last year. And Tampa was still able to figure it out when they got Mike Evans back, at least, and they were able to still win the division. So, but yeah, I've been really impressed with what Ibuka has done. He is up there for Offensive Rookie of the Year, and just hopefully he could shake this hamstring injury, and Tampa hopefully bounces back. They do have a get-right game against the Saints this week, but obviously divisional games could be interesting at times. So we'll see how Tampa looks from here on out. But Ibuka has been very good.
Yeah, again, and you see, like, again, with Tampa Bay done with this pick, and like you alluded to, the success Ohio State had, it was really just like one of those things, I guess, for Tampa Bay where it was no-brainer, best player available pick. Like we said, with the receiving core they had, their receiving core is so strong, but they were clearly taking the guy that they could bank on that would be a success no matter how the fit is, no matter what they have as a team. And again, he's panned out right away for them. The other receivers, like you said, McMillan, Tez Johnson, they look pretty good as well. Tez Johnson, again, in the 7th round, I just thought very similar to, again, what the Giants did with Cam Scatterby. You're taking a guy so late in an NFL draft where they were one of the best players in college football last year. Sometimes I feel like we tend to overthink things and find this diamond in the rough, or just, we need this fit, let's get this player. But again, long term, the best option is taking the best player available. And Tampa Bay seems to do that. They look really good. And like you said, they're going to lean on him even more with Mike Evans now probably being out for the year, I guess. And then, again, they're going to need him for sure when Bucky Irvin comes back too. At least that will help them a little bit. But he's definitely going to step into that number 1 role a lot sooner than we expected. Now we're going to get into another guy where things have not looked pretty at all. But I think, again, I wasn't in love with the guy as a prospect. I liked him in college, but again, I feel like the situation he is in, he has just no opportunity to succeed right now. We were talking about Cam Ward. Now, they fired a coach in Callahan pretty early. I don't agree with it in the sense of, again, do I think Callahan was the answer at coach? No, but again, you took Cam Ward with the number 1 overall pick, and now somebody else is going to be calling plays, being the head coach. I think that's, again, putting a lot on somebody within 7 weeks of learning the NFL. So I don't necessarily agree with that. I think it should have been a little later. Then when you look at Cam Ward as well, and we talked about it with other people, there are some people that get drafted in the top 10 that could completely change an organization, that they could put the whole offense on their shoulders, dig out an organization from underneath them, no matter how bad the situation is. I don't necessarily think Cam Ward is that. I think he's going to be a guy that needs pieces around him again, like almost anybody does. But I think he's going to need definitely pieces around him to succeed. When you look at Cam Ward, again, they don't have the weapons. They don't have a run game. Their offensive line is, I don't know if it's dead last, but it's at the bottom. Like, and the game script for him when you're not able to run the football and you're down in games, it's it's like it's suicide. Like he's literally just sitting back there taking hits. They know the play call. He doesn't have the weapons. He doesn't have a run game, and it's predictable within the second quarter, middle of the second quarter from the game on out, and he's just set up to fail. Now, I said it with Caleb Williams. I don't think he's nearly as great of a prospect as Caleb Williams is. We all know how much I love Caleb Williams, but when you look at a guy that like loves to extend plays and has the mobility to do it, when you don't have an offensive line or a run game, it's just not going to happen for you. Is he taking sacks again that he shouldn't be taking? Yeah, of course. But when you have no rhythm at all as well with a run game, with consistent play calling, like it has looked really bad. And I think Cam Ward is going to be one of these guys, if things don't turn it around, that his situation made him the player he is. Like I think he's maybe a guy that they give 2 or 3 years to, and unless you see drastic improvement within this roster, he would basically never have a chance to succeed in the NFL, whether he had the talent to do so or not. And again, I don't think he's a guy that's going to be an elite quarterback. I think he's a guy that can be good in the NFL with his skill set, but I'm questioning right now, and it's extremely early if it's ever going to happen in Tennessee because they don't have a coach and they don't have a roster either. So, like, how is this going to happen within the realistic time frame of this current time in the NFL where quarterbacks get less of a time frame to show themselves than ever? How much better could Tennessee be in 2 years unless they just hit on everything and have a massive overhaul? Like, this guy may never have a chance to succeed.
Yeah, and honestly, I think this like what led to this conversation about Cam Ward, I felt like it all started when the Titans traded AJ Brown because since that point, the Titans have just gone on the tailspin. Now, I think the bloom, and you would agree with this, the bloom was going to come off the rose with Ryan Tannehill. But since they traded AJ Brown, I mean, this Titans franchise has just been a joke. And they move off of Mike Vrabel, and you see what he's doing over in New England now. You go to Callahan, who's with the Bengals, and he doesn't even make it through his second year. And the roster is not in a good spot. I mean, the receivers aren't great. Calvin Ridley is 30 years old and he can't stay healthy, and he was out of the league for a year for different reasons. And I wonder, they're probably going to move off of him. Tyler Lockett signed with them, and then he requested to be released, so now he's going to go somewhere else. And they had DeAndre Hopkins for a little bit, but they traded him last year. You do have some receivers over there, and you still got Tony Pollard, a veteran running back that you signed, but yeah, there's just a lot of problems with this team. I don't think the defense is awful. Like, I still think the defense has some good players on it, but it's just a lot of work that needs to be done. It's amazing that the Titans were able to win a game this year against the Cardinals.
That was like a magical win.
Yeah, I mean, it's as magical as it can get. I mean, you were seeing things that you would never have seen in an NFL game before.
That wasn't necessarily being the better team for 4 quarters.
No, it wasn't.
That was a lot of luck.
That was a lot of luck. You had an interception. I can't even believe that this happened. Cam Ward throws a pick. Then the Cardinals player, he tries to get up. He drops the ball. And then the ball, it's like a pinball machine with all the players. It ends up in the end zone. And Tyler Lockett, who's not on the team anymore, recovers it for a touchdown. And it just, I don't know how they won that game. I really don't know how they won that game. But they won a game. And it's just, yeah. I watched a little bit of the, on Red Zone when they played the Raiders. And it's just, and the Raiders are bad. The Titans couldn't do anything. And, the ball is slipping out of Cam Ward's hand and on one possession that led to a turnover. It's just, I don't think it's reflective on him as a. I mean, obviously, yes, he's a rookie and he hasn't been great, but I think he just ended up in such a bad situation that yeah, I mean, he looks bad because yeah, part of it is he's a rookie, but a lot of it has to do with the situation that he's in. He is not in a great situation. And yes, I mean, when you're a rookie and you're taken with the number one overall pick, odds are you're going to end up in a situation that's not great. And that's what happened to him. So, I think you still got to try to figure things out. And he's made some good plays this year. Like against the Rams, he had that touchdown pass where he was, he was improving and he chucked the ball from from the sideline to the other side of the field for the touchdown. Like, yeah, the talent is there, but he is just in such a bad situation. So it's really hard to kind of evaluate what kind of player he is when he doesn't have a lot of help. So this is another team that has got a lot of work to do, and they got to bring in the right head coach, which I don't know who that's going to be, but Titans got a lot of work to do. But I think you still got to give this guy more of a runway. Not that he's in jeopardy of losing his job or anything, like they're going to pull a plug on him, but I'm just saying, like, it's tough to evaluate him. You got to get more pieces in to help him along. So that's kind of where I'm at with him. But yeah, it just looks so bad right now.
Yeah, I feel like I like you said, I feel like you just can't evaluate him. And I think, again, you were alluding to, obviously they went off from A.J. Brown, went off from Derrick Henry, whatever, that whole stint with Ryan Tannehill. But that team hit their ceiling.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
They were a product of a weak division. We knew Ryan Tannehill couldn't really take them to where they wanted to go to. Like, the team had a ceiling of, making the playoffs, winning a playoff game, and that's about it. But what they have done after that, again, with the product of whatever pieces they got from certain trades, draft picks or whatever, it has been a disaster for them. And I feel like they've signed so many veterans to try to build a culture. When you look at Tony Pollard, Calvin Ridley, Tyler Lockett, Snead, all these people.
They signed Tyler Boyd too, and he's gone now.
Like, they signed all these veterans that better days are like so behind them. And I get building a culture, but like at the same time, it's like you bring in one or two veterans to build a culture, but you can't bring in all these veterans that aren't producing on the field and expect like a team to gather around them. Like, again, what they're doing on the field is not working. And again, I don't know if it's going to be like, again, as we talked about recently in NFL, where maybe down the line, I don't even want to talk about it, Cam Moore becomes a reclamation project. But for me personally, unless something massively happens in Tennessee, I don't see a way this guy succeeds. I don't see how anybody would unless they're like an all-time great talent. Because again, it has been pretty bad how he's set up for success. And I don't know who's going to want to coach this team.
I mean, it's got to be somebody. Somebody's going to want to take the job. Somebody has to take the job. They can't go into the season.
Situation like Aaron Glenn last year, where he has ties to the team and nobody else wants him. And hey, I'm looking for a pay grade because nobody who has options is going to choose this one.
Yeah, it's tough. It is going to be. I mean, we'll see. We'll see if somebody's going to take it. I mean, maybe it's just, again, maybe it's another first-time head coach. Maybe it's a coordinator. It's they got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, I'm nervous for Cam Ward for sure. The next guy we're going to talk about is somebody that we all like, somebody that his draft stock was fluctuating as he was getting picked, which I didn't understand why. I thought this guy was a can't miss receiver. He's looked pretty good in my opinion. He's on a team where, again, we talked about it with the Jaguars, just like mixed bag. Like, we're talking about Ted McMillan. Ted McMillan on his Panthers team, like the way this team wins and what you see from them week to week,
it's not pretty.
It's ridiculous. Like, Bryce Young plays a really solid game, then he plays a horrible game. Then you have backup running backs rushing for 200 yards. Like, their style of winning just like doesn't translate week to week. It's like you see a different team every week. And outside of all that, I think Ted McMillan has looked pretty good almost every single game he's played. I think for him to have the ability, like we talk about Emeka Buka where he primarily plays in the slot. I feel like you could argue it's even more impressive what Ted McMillan is doing because he's on the outside a majority of the time, which you're getting jammed from a receiver safety and the sideline, and the ball is going to him and he's still able to get open. I think he has looked really, really good. Again, I don't know what the Panthers necessarily are going to be around him in the future. It's so strange. A guy that had such a storied college career in Bryce Young, a guy that we've seen pretty much as much you could see from a young quarterback from here on out, and we still don't even know what to make of him. And again, this team is a winning football team right now. They're 4-3. Does help that they played the Jets last week, but I'm not really sure what to make of how Ted McMillan's future is going to be. I think he's one of those guys that's so talented. He's going to put up good numbers regardless. But again, a guy that's 6'5", 212 pounds could play any spot for a receiver. He's looked really good. The team he's on is just weird.
Yeah, they're not flashy. Like had he had been where Emeka Egbuka ended up, I mean, he'd be putting up monster numbers.
Yeah.
So, and look, I mean, we talked about, the handling of young quarterbacks and how, if you take them out, that destroys their confidence. And, for some, that's not the case. I mean, look at what happened with Bryce Young. That's the exact situation that happened to him. He got benched for Andy Dalton. Then they put him back in last year and he looked a lot better. And he's another guy that's kind of been a mixed bag this year, but they got 4 wins. They got 4 wins. And you kind of look at the skill position players around him. I mean, the running backs, we had Rico Dowdle, 200 rushing yards, but you can also say, against some subpar defenses, we'll put that lightly. But
200 though.
Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. But now with Chuba being back, it's going to change a little bit. But the Panthers really needed to add a playmaker to this team and to help Bryce Young along if they're going to commit to Bryce Young for the long term. And Ted McMillan has definitely fit that bill so far. He had his first NFL touchdown actually had a couple of touchdowns against the Cowboys. So, he's definitely helping Bryce Young out, which is great. Like I said, they need that playmaker on that side of the ball. So, but yeah, it's like his ceiling is not that high because, like I said, if he ended up on an offense with, a better situation, he ended up in Tampa, instead of Egbuka, then, he'd be going off every week. But, obviously that's, besides the point. He was definitely a good pick for them. And, just got to continue to see how he does the rest of the way. And, if the Panthers really can make any noise, could they be a team that, squeaks in as a wild card? Maybe. I would say no, but they're 4-3, but, yeah. So, again, just got to see how it goes the rest of the way.
Now we're going to get into Ashton Jeanty, a guy that had an historic running back season. Obviously, he was the talk of the town, whether you watched college football, whether you didn't, you knew of Ashton Jeanty. I said a pre-draft, I was in love with his spot. I thought the guy was a can't-miss, at least really good NFL player. I don't know if I was as high as him, even though he had better numbers than we have ever seen in our lifetime in college. I don't know if I was as high on him as like a Saquon Barkley, as an Ezekiel Elliott coming out. But again, can't-miss guy. I said it, I hated the team he went to because when we talk about running backs, production not being valued into wins, I don't know if Ashton Jeanty in the next 3-4 years is ever going to be producing to really a lot of wins because Raiders are a mess. They're another team that's a complete mess. And it's very hard, especially with the last 3 teams we were talking about. There's so much going on Sunday. You don't necessarily get to see these players as much as you would like to. Again, there's other games on. You're really not tuned on to the Raiders unless they're prime time or you have red zone on. I watched Ted McMillan a little bit like we discussed because I have him in fantasy. Tennessee, don't see anything about them really. But again, for Ashton Jeanty, he has 111 carries right now. That's 4th in the NFL, so he's getting used a lot. but the offensive line isn't really there. And then when you look at Geno Smith, you could quite argue he's been the worst quarterback in the NFL, or at least one of them. And again, for this Raiders team that decided like we want to do like a half necessarily all in to compete for this division, it's going to backfire massively, obviously. Like Geno Smith is going to go down as one of the worst contracts we have seen from a quarterback. Like they paid him whatever it was, $40+ million a year for a multitude of years. He already flat out on year one for the Raiders looks like one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. Then you bring in Pete Carroll, which I didn't mind that necessarily. I thought they needed a culture change. He is going to be a Hall of Fame coach. But again, he's going to be there for 2 or 3 years just based on his age. They're probably not going to be good in that amount of time. They do have pieces with him. Brock Bowers has been injured, but again, we're looking at Ashton Jeanty, them using him like a workhorse running back right now, him not having the opportunity to really produce to anything. I just thought it was kind of a waste just because of the shelf life of this position. Like if they would have got an anchor on defense, like a guy that could last you, or an offensive lineman, a guy that could last you a multitude of years. But to have these running backs with the shelf life they have now and the amount of work he got in college now going into the NFL, like he could be a guy that gets all his work in 3 to 4 years and not produce anything for the Raiders. Do I think the guy's a really good player? Yes, no doubt, but it has been underwhelming in its majority, I think, because of the situation he's been on. I think the guy has the talent, but I wasn't in love with his draft pick to begin with. I get it that the guy's a can't miss, really good NFL player, but in this situation, to me, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's been a tough year for him. It's been a tough year for the Raiders. Um, it's not the best situation. Definitely, they're not, again, a team that has a lot of work to do. I thought they would be a little bit better just because of Pete Carroll being there, his presence, and compared to what the Raiders have had at quarterback, I thought Geno Smith could come in and just be okay, but he hasn't been that at all. He's been far from okay. And then also you have a little bit of the presence of Tom Brady just being there as well. Like I just feel like having Pete Carroll and Tom Brady there, like I just feel like that is there's going to be some kind of payoff to that, where I think this team can turn it around maybe. But it doesn't help when you have a division with Sean Payton, Jim Harbaugh, and Andy Reid, and all those teams are way ahead of you right now. And all those
quarterbacks are.
Yeah, and all those quarterbacks. All those teams made the playoffs last year. One of them was in the Super Bowl, and they're in the Super Bowl almost every year now. They're in the AFC Championship game every year. So it's just there's a lot. Unless Brady wants to, come down from the booth and take the field for them if he wants, but yeah, Brady wouldn't be able to survive on this team right now. But they got a lot of stuff working against them. But I do think that they're going to. I feel like in this window that they're going to figure it out, and they're going to be better than what they are right now with the people that they have. But now, having said that, yeah, it's just when you take a running back that high, you kind of relate it to the Giants when they took Saquon because, yeah, they wanted Eli Manning to, go for another ring, but that Giants team was nowhere near ready to compete for anything, and that's kind of like this team, the Raiders. They're not competing. This division's impossible. The offensive line's a mess, and outside of Brock Bowers, I mean, who scares you on this offense? Nobody. Nobody's scaring you. Jacoby Myers, who, is, I guess, their best receiver, probably end up trading him. So, yeah, they got a lot of work to do. And I think if they could figure it out, Jeanty could end up having a good career. But, that window of your best years as a running back, it's so small that it's going to, I mean, Saquon's career hasn't been wasted because now he went to Philly and they won the Super Bowl. And maybe Jeanty, maybe it's a similar situation where the Raiders like, yeah, you know what, we're going to move off of you, and he's going to end up going to the Chiefs and they, win another Super Bowl or something. I don't know. But, and they're a division rival. So there you go. So don't be surprised if Jeanty ends up on the Chiefs, after his rookie contract is up and the Raiders don't want to pay him. So, but yeah, like the window, like they have a certain window with this guy. And they also need to find their franchise quarterback because it's not Geno Smith. There's just so many things that they have to do to fix this team. So yeah, it's been tough for Genty. He did have one really good game this year, and again, heck of a prospect. It's just, again, situation is not great, and there's a lot of variables that you could point to and say, yeah, it's just who knows when it's going to happen. Who knows what's going to happen? But um, it's more reflective. This is another player where it's more reflective on the situation than it is the prospect.
Yeah, and you say like I have a little disagreement. You say that Pete Carroll and Tom Brady, like you think it's gonna eventually turn into something with those two minds there. But I feel like also at the same time, when you may not be hiring the best candidate for the job and you're going off of like past resume and like notoriety, like the person, like like it becomes more noise than anything. Like we watched a game together where the Chargers played the Raiders. The camera was on Tom Brady the whole game. He was in the booth. And what was he doing? Nothing. They were getting killed the whole entire time. Like at the end of the day, like those good hires, if it doesn't produce results, they just become more of a distraction than anything. So I don't really know how that's going to work. Again, we see Tom Brady not really knowing what to do with himself after retirement. He's all over the place. I don't know how much he has necessarily invested in the Raiders, like time wise. I know the money is fronted and his percentage, but
I mean, he's definitely got to have some if he's up in the booth.
I mean, if he's up in the booth, if he's doing this flag football thing where he's getting paid $75 million with Michael Rubin, all these other things, like
and he's broadcasting, he's on Fox, he's with Kevin Burkhardt. He's got a lot of things
like,
that he's
invested
invested in.
He's invested in the Raiders, and maybe all this other stuff may be an excuse because the Raiders are so bad. I don't know, and he doesn't want to be associated with them. But again, it's gonna also depend for this Raiders team. Like Geno Smith is clearly not the answer. I didn't think he was the answer to begin with. I thought last year looked horrible, but it's going to really depend on if the Raiders team could turn it around, if how quickly they move off of Geno Smith as well. If they going to get tied up with the money they paid him, and if they're going to continue to ride this out just because he's getting paid, and it's going to be another 2-3 years of him, it's probably not going to get turned around. But if they draft high, select the quarterback, try to rebuild the whole thing, then maybe it is. But I don't think Geno Smith is the answer. And again, with him turning the ball the way he is and how he's been playing, this Raiders team can't turn itself around physically if he's their leader. I don't think.
Yeah, no, the quarterback they need to find, and then they just got to get the right surrounding pieces to go along with that. And they have some already with Bowers and Genty. Yeah. And then you got Max Crosby on the other side, but Max Crosby's not going to be, at his peak for that much longer. So again, a lot of work.
Yeah, I also credit these guys, Max Crosby, Myles Garrett, for sticking with these teams. But again, wouldn't shock
because they were shown the bag. That's why.
Yeah, but wouldn't shock me if they got the bag in the next 1 or 2 years, where they say I want to be traded like they all did. Go to a contender. Anyway, let's get into our last player. We're going to talk about Tyler Warren. Tyler Warren, very funny enough, when we were doing his pre-draft process, I remember him saying when he got drafted to the Colts, like, I don't like the situation for him. I don't know if there's going to be much success. Who's going to be throwing him the ball? How is he going to be schemed up? But again, I don't know if anybody remembers because feels like so long ago because how much success the Colts have. He's in a phenomenal situation that we thought wasn't going to be a great situation. We didn't know who was going to have the job. Now it's like a laughing stock that they were even considering Anthony Richardson for the job. Daniel Jones has been playing out of his mind. So he might be in a good situation for the future. Again, the offense has really run a lot through Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor you could argue, has been the best back in the league, him or Bijan pretty much. But again, Tyler Warren has looked great. He has been producing 439 yards, 3 touchdowns. He looks really good. My only thing with Tyler Warren is I feel like the way Tyler Warren was used at Penn State, I think they could open it up a little more for him eventually. Again, they might be easing him in. Again, you can't argue with the results that they have had. But this was a guy at Penn State we've seen on the outside, in the slot. We've seen him in the backfield. We've seen him throwing passes. This is a guy that could do a whole lot of things. Again, I don't watch the Colts or any team necessarily every single week outside of the teams that I root for, but it doesn't seem like they're using him necessarily in that way. You can't argue with it, though. His production has been great. The team has been succeeding, and he may have like really long-term stability with the ability to produce numbers with Daniel Jones as his quarterback. Again, I don't know how the Daniel Jones thing is going to pan out. Right now, he's playing like you could argue the best quarterback in the league. But we also saw the same thing out of Sam Darnold last year, pretty much at this point in time and throughout the whole season. And if this team goes to the playoffs with a great record and they lose the first round matchup, people might not be looking at him as high going into next year.
And that wouldn't surprise me at all if that happens.
Like, I don't know if Daniel Jones is going to be a guy that continues this out, has an impressive playoffs, and gets top dollar, or are we going to see them eventually flame out or stall out, whatever the case may be? Like, again, this is a hot team right now, without a doubt. Like, they have been great. I don't know necessarily if, again, you can't argue with whatever they are, 6-1, but they have played a couple of teams where they have rolled through. I mean, they played Miami, they played Vegas, they played Arizona, they played Tennessee. Those are 4 teams right there that aren't going to be anywhere near.
They did play the Chargers too. They smacked the Chargers around.
They smacked the Chargers, and they lost. They also beat Denver too, which was a little bit of a late end.
Yeah,
luck a little bit, and they really should have beat the Rams. Like, when you look,
yeah,
back,
AD Mitchell, the fumble.
Like, they should have beat the Rams. We were watching that on a bus, but
yeah, on the way back, yep.
But yeah, like, I want to see more from this Colts team again. The division they're in kind of pans them out for an easier schedule than NFL teams. So it wouldn't be surprising to me, like you said, like we both said, really, if they flamed out in the playoffs. Because, again, their schedule hasn't been the toughest. They do have impressive wins against Denver, against the Chargers. They played great against the Rams. So part of me thinks they're legit. And then the other part of me is like, they also played for cupcakes. Like, I don't know. But then the other thing with this Colts team too, and I don't want to make it just like a Colts thing, the teams that they played that are really bad, they beat how they should be. They beat them.
Yeah.
When you look at Miami, they beat them 33-8. When you play Vegas, you beat them 40-6. Against Arizona, it was a little closer. Tennessee, they beat by 21 as well. So good teams really beat teams how they're supposed to beat them.
They got the Titans again this week.
Yeah, I know. That's why it's just tough to really get a grasp on this team. I want to see more of, again, what this team pans out to be towards the end of the year to find out Tyler Warren's long-term situation. But I do think, again, Tyler Warren has been really good on the surface, and I think he could be even better if they, juice up the play call from a little bit, because this is a guy that could do a lot of different things.
Yeah, I mean, I think, they've used him in different – they have used him in different ways at times. I think in the red zone. But, yeah, I mean, he's been very good. He's been a security blanket for Daniel Jones, and yeah, it's a good situation. I mean, it's such a good situation that, he fell in our redraft league, and you took him in like the 10th or 11th round. And then Daniel Jones went undrafted, and I picked him up after the draft. And he's been a top quarterback in fantasy. And yet, like, the situation is good. Like, I think where he ended up was good. It was just, like, the quarterback situation. We didn't really know what to expect because the Colts have a trio of young, talented receivers, or four receivers. They got Pierce, AD Mitchell, Michael Pittman, and Josh Downs. And then you have one of the best running backs in the NFL in Jonathan Taylor with a good offensive line. So it was really just, what is the quarterback position going to give the Colts? And Daniel Jones has been very good. He's been very good. And this Colts team has been very good. I still do think at times, like, Daniel Jones played really well. I still think he's limited. Not limited to the point like we were talking about with like Dylan Gabriel, but like there are some limitations with Daniel Jones. But having said that, like I said, he's a security blanket for Daniel Jones. Tyler Warren is, and he's like that red zone threat that this team needs and that Daniel Jones needs. Daniel Jones, what made Daniel Jones successful with the Giants when he was successful was he had a very good running game, which you have that with Jonathan Taylor. But with the Giants, he didn't have a tight end like Tyler Warren. And now that he has that, I mean, that just only adds on to it. So, yeah, I mean, the Colts, they look really good. Tyler Warren's looked good. And he's definitely turning himself into one of the better tight ends in the NFL. And this is only his rookie season. He's been everything as advertised.
Yeah, and it was definitely the notion, I feel like, previously, like even 2, 3 years back, where like rookie tight ends were like one of the hardest like transition positions, where we see like tight ends break out in their third, fourth year. But what we've seen out of Brock Bowers and him so far the last couple of years, it has been really, really good. Again, I just don't even know where to stand on this Colts team. Like a large part of me thinks, like we said, like this is one of those really good regular season teams when they face a Mahomes, a Josh Allen, something like
And
that. Playoffs,
they are going to face the Chiefs in Arrowhead, I think, in a couple weeks. And I think it's on like a Monday night, I want to say, or so, either Monday night or actually I don't even know when exactly the game is.
probably
But
a Monday or Sunday night.
yeah, so actually no, it's 1 o'clock on CBS, week
All right,
12.
all
So
right.
more than a couple weeks. They do have the Steelers coming up in Pittsburgh, week 9, so that could be an interesting game. But yeah, out of the bye week, actually, they'll be in Arrowhead to take on the Chiefs. Maybe that's a game that gets pushed back and flexed more into a nationally televised game, because that's definitely going to be a Nance Romo vehicle. So that's going to be a true test for them in Arrowhead against the Chiefs. The Chiefs look really good, so I'm looking forward to paying attention to that game and see what they're made of.
Yeah, it's definitely an all over the place thing. And then again, it's so funny too. There's always like situations, one or two every year, where you expect one team, well, you expect one thing, and then like you get the complete opposite thing. Especially with the Colts situation, their QB room, how well they've been. Like again, something that not many people could expect. Like again, I never hated Daniel Jones. Like I thought he was decent, but I did not expect this. I don't think many people did.
Yeah,
Being
I
MVP
had
for
my
over
differences with
10
him.
weeks.
I had my differences with him, and we'll just leave it at that.
But
But I'm actually very happy for him. I'm very happy for him that it looks like he's found a home with Indianapolis, and he's playing good football. You know, the guy wanted to win. It just didn't pan out in New York. You know, and that happens. You know, so but I am very happy that he's proven the doubters wrong, and I'll admit, like, yeah, I'm a doubter. So I'm happy he's proving me wrong, and I'm happy that he's had a good year. He's had a very good year, and hopefully for him that continues.
yeah, and we'll see. We'll see what happens because again, like we said, with a guy that played this small of a sample size of really great football in the NFL, like I mentioned last year with Sam Darnold, like depends how the season pans out to see again what the market's going to be on him in the offseason, what his long-term situation is going to be. Nothing is really guaranteed, but again, different situation with the Vikings. They had a first-round quarterback they drafted that year. Colts don't necessarily have that. Anthony Richardson isn't going to be on the team next year, most likely. So, and again, they're going to be not drafting high as well. So it's not even like they're going to have that really option either. Like they're probably going to stick with him. It's going to be interesting to see, the money.
I think though I think if this continues, I think they'll work out a deal with him. I don't think this is going to be a situation where they're just going to let him walk. I mean, maybe it happens like with Sam Darnold, where you make the playoffs and then we've talked about it already, where he just completely flames out. But it's hard for me right now to say that the Colts aren't going to have discussions with him after the season and try to put something together, because I think he is only signed for 1 year.
Yeah, they're not going to have a better option. Like they're not. And
Yeah.
like again, he could flame out towards the end of the year, but again, what he has taken him to and stuff. Like again, it's just going to be a question of really how much money he gets because they don't really have any other options at the quarterback position. He's playing well again, a complete success story like that we just did not really expect. And another example of a quarterback that was in a horrible situation that goes somewhere else and looks great.
Yep.
That wraps up this episode. Anything else you want to add on the rookies? Anything else?
No, but if you are tuning in to Steelers Packers Sunday night in Pittsburgh, I'll be there. So looking forward to that.
Yep, we'll see what happens with that. Interesting storyline to say the least.
Yeah.
But that wraps up this episode. Ken, you could say where they could find you at.
Yeah, so on the YouTube side, if you look up Infinite Sports Official is the YouTube account. That's my content, cover NFL. do cover baseball, mostly Yankees, but obviously, their season ended a little earlier than a lot of people were hoping, as you could tell from the background. But I did do a World Series episode. I did talk about the other series that have gone on, so make sure to check that out. Got an Infinite Sports on. You can find me on Instagram, TikTok, and X as well. And then also, if you have Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, you can look, just look up Infinite Sports and you'll find me there as well.
All right. That wraps up this episode on the NFL rookies. Like I said, not to foreshadow, maybe we'll do something at the end of the year going over their seasons and final. That wraps up this episode of Sloppy Saturdays, and we are